Men are struggling in almost every way imaginable. Suicide, addiction, homelessness, a general sense of being lost in today's society, and they are often criticized. The purpose of this podcast is for men to understand their struggles and understand solutions. The man I'm joined by today is a father, a business owner, a psychedelics expert, and he's traveled around the world studying indigenous cultures for wisdom and healing practices. I'm joined today by Marc-John Brown so he can share solutions for men. How's it going, Marc?
I'm very good, brother. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for being here, man. And you're doing lots of cool things, and I'm excited to have this conversation. I'll just let you explain. I've done a little introduction there, but I want you to explain in your own words, if you don't mind, what it is you do.
Yeah, cool. Um, so I co-founded and co-direct a company called Native Wisdom Hub, and Native Wisdom Hub is a company that offers the opportunity to um, experience healing with psychedelics, uh, predominantly in shamanic, earth-based wisdom traditions, indigenous wisdom traditions. Um, and those more ceremonial modalities and ways of healing with psychedelics. Um, yeah, we offer training and coaching and mentoring in those realms. Um, and our core ethos really is to help to steward the world's current psychedelic renaissance, as you may wish to call it, a renaissance in popularity of psychedelics for the purposes of personal growth, to steward that with in ways that are rooted in ethics, responsibility, and integrity, recognizing that the coin of ethics, responsibility, and integrity has two faces. One being the ethics of caring and space holding, and the ethics of um, offering sacred space for healing. And then on the flip side of that same coin, the yeah ethics, responsibility, and integrity that are cross cultural. So taking care of the world's living indigenous populations who in many cases are still stewarding and carrying the medicines with which we are now interacting in the modern world, and by way of which we are achieving miraculous levels of healing, and in many cases, making money from as well. So, yeah, just allowing them to continue to have a seat at the table of conversation as this, global expansion and popularity of psychedelic healing modalities continues to unfold. I, as the co-director of the company, um, do most of the communications and like we're doing here, kind of public-facing stuff. But my wife, there's not a decision that happens on a company level and executive level that doesn't go past my wife first. Uh, my wife is a ancestral cacao guardian indigenous to the Apurimac region of high in the Andes Mountains of Peru. She's part of the Chanca peoples. And yeah, apart from that, I offer, what I call integral performance coaching, which is making sure, working with people who are pretty high performing people, uh, making sure that all of their, all of the parts of their being are integrated, balanced for sustainable prosperity and success, if you will. So yeah, hopefully that's enough of an overview.
I think so. I think that's very cool, man. Um, I'm curious, and we'll probably get into this more, but why do you think there's a renaissance of psychedelic use? Why do you think there's more interest?
Because people are becoming exhausted by their efforts of trying to be well. We've created an environment for ourselves that is so disconnected from our nature, um, that people are struggling to, in the Colombian wisdom traditions, they call it the bicho, you know. Bicho just basically means bug. So it's like you got this bug crawling around your body and you just can't find what the heck it is. Like what is it? What is it that's wrong with me? And so they're experiencing what it is to have this bug annoying them, and they can't, they're trying everything that the Western world is offering to them: psychology, um, psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, psychiatrics, your standard medical doctor, allopathic medicine. And in so many cases, it's either not doing the job that it's required to do, or it's not having positive enough action quick enough. And so people are looking for alternatives. Um, and yeah, word is spreading, wherever anybody catches a little bit of wind, a little bit of, a whisper in the wind of something that is potentially powerful for turning around mental, emotional, psychosomatic turmoil. They want to jump on it, and I think that's how this whole Renaissance began to unfold, is as the world became more pressurized, the cost of living continued to rise as salaries continue to remain the same. The environment becomes continuously toxic, with environmental toxins, heavy metals everywhere, just and that combined with all the chemical like soups and mixtures that we are kind of putting into our body all the time. I think it's just the human spirit really driving, searching for wellness. I think that's what brought the Renaissance around.
Wellness, meaning, purpose, health, that sort of thing.
Wellness, to be well, to feel at peace, to feel at peace. Yeah. Purpose can be part of wellness as well. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be part of the word wellness, though.
Mm.
I think wellness is just being well, as in like
Mm.
not being ill, not feeling diseased. Um,
So sort of like a baseline, just well.
just to be well, to be okay. Yeah. And so many people in this world are not okay. They can't even sit still for a minute, you know?
Yeah, like not even close to okay.
Right.
What what led you down this path? What could you tell a little bit about your story and how you came to this life basically?
Yeah. So age 11, I met the guy who would go on to become my best friend through teenage years. Age 13, I met the guy who would become my second best friend through teenage years. The first one was from Argentina, the second one from Paraguay, South America, both South Americans. When I learned that one country was bordering the other and they both speak the same language, I introduced them. They became good friends, and we as a trio became good friends growing up together through teenage years. And so by the age 15, I was completely bilingual in Spanish, South American Spanish, and English. One might say trilingual, because I grew up also speaking Scots, which is subject to huge linguistic debate as to whether or not it's a dialect or a language, um, a dialect of English or a language of its own. But yeah, yeah, I'm speaking English right now, and everybody can understand what I'm saying. So English, Spanish. Um,
So was that just from spending so much time with their family that you picked up Spanish?
well, they were really, my saving grace, because I came from a, a challenging household. My mother was violent and aggressive, and my home wasn't safe for me as a child. And so, yeah, sleeping, I literally spent like from 11 to 16, 17, sleeping predominantly during the weeks at their homes between the Argentinian and the Paraguayan. Um, to the point that, the Paraguayan, his every time I would come in after high school, I'd literally finish high school and I would either go straight to their home with my friend, or I'd go and train boxing, and then after boxing go and go to his place. And every time I went through the door, or so many times when I go through the door, his mom would come up and like pat me on the cheek like this and say, "Mi cuarto hijo," my fourth son.
Mm.
Um, so that's what planted the seed. And age 19, I went to South America for the first time with the intention of living for 6 months in Buenos Aires. When I was living in Buenos Aires, I went through a big spiritual awakening thanks to a clairvoyant woman who just cracked me wide open to so many mm, realities and possibilities. And that inspired me to cancel my flights home, and then to sell all my designer clothes and valuables on the streets of Buenos Aires, to then hitchhike through Chile and Bolivia into Peru. And as I was hitchhiking primarily through Bolivia, I came face to face with the region's indigenous populations, the Quechua and the Aymara people. And so that spiritual awakening came face to face into deep entwinement with my first encounter and my enchantment with the region's indigenous populations, and that's where the seed was planted. I then crossed the border into Peru. 5 days after that happened, I met the woman who 2 weeks later I would move in with, and 3 months later I would marry, and she is still my wife today, 15 or something years later. And and yeah, she's a representative of the Chanka people, and together we embarked on a life of um, studying these wisdom traditions, and becoming, yeah, deeply enamored by them. And as part of that process, my wife was reawoken to her own ancestral lineage and the wisdom of her own, you know, uh, ancestral tradition, which in so many ways is in and of itself shamanic. And so it really just gave a big energy boost to everything that we were doing. And, yeah, we traveled the world far and wide: Korea, China, Malaysia, all over Europe, um, always in pursuit of, earth-based wisdom traditions. And yeah, I guess that in a nutshell, what brought us to doing what we do today. Throughout that whole period of time, for the first 2 years, we were working extensively with San Pedro cactus, the Andean mescaline-based medicine.
Can
And
I
then after
slow you
the,
down for 1 second,
yeah,
if you
yeah,
don't mind, and just
yeah, yeah.
like that initial spiritual awakening? So you had met somebody
Hmm.
down there, and she had helped you with that. What was that like? I mean, for someone, for guys that are listening out there, like that never had a spiritual awakening, and I don't really know what that means. Like, what was it like? What did it feel like? Because it sounds like it completely changed the trajectory of your life.
It really did. It really did. There's no mincing our words with this one. Yeah, it really did. It just set my entire life up, right? Like, it just set me up for life. It set my path. Not that I didn't deviate from it, of course. Not
Yeah.
that, not that I didn't get lost along the way. Only to be reminded of that path and drop back into it. But yeah, to answer your question, and thank you for slowing me down and wanting to kind of unpack that a little bit more. I was open. I was open-minded, curious. Um, I had a sense that there was something bigger than everything I'd experienced up until that point in my life. Um, And she just, this clairvoyant woman who, she told me that she could see my past lives. She could very clearly see my childhood and my teenage years. Um, Speaking with her just blew my mind open, you know. And if I was curious before I met her, that curiosity was put on steroids. And, so I went to the bookstores in Buenos Aires and literally wiped their spiritual and esoteric bookshelves clear. I ended up with like two piles of books in my bedroom in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and I went through about half of them in the space of a month. Um, and so it was just like this stark, brisk, kind of sudden big wave of um, opening to comprehending and digesting the notion that our life is spiritual, and um, and that we have a soul, and that the soul moves through different forms and embodies different things, and there's a higher consciousness, you know, a godly consciousness, a sacred consciousness, a divine consciousness that is like influencing, permeating, and penetrating everything in existence and everything that we're doing.
So was she some sort of spiritual teacher, or what was the title that you gave her?
She, clairvoyant,
Clairvoyant.
clairvoyant, which means she can see.
Mm,
Voyant, she she
mm.
she can see. She is a seer. Um, and I met her through the friends I was staying with back then. They had a travel agency, and the travel agency was co-directed by three people and three women, and one of those women was this clairvoyant woman. And on the first day that I went into the office and was introduced to the other two women, who are both sisters, my friend who I was staying with, she said, "Be careful with this one, by the way, she's a witch." And I just kind of like brushed it off my shoulder, and um, it didn't take me long to realize that she was being serious. Like, she's actually a witch. She's, of some sort. She can see your soul. She can see you.
So you have this conversation. Is it one conversation that really sparks it off, or is it multiple conversations?
It was the first conversation that was like the bomb in the ocean.
She
Um,
just looked you right in the soul, just told you everything. You're like, oh my God.
yeah, I mean, she broke me. I mean, the things that she saw from my childhood, the truths that she saw, and the things she was able to see, about how I feel about this person and why this person did that to me. And my goodness, like I broke down in front of her, I broke into tears. Um, so it was that first conversation that was the big bomb in the ocean. But then we spent, another, I don't know, like the best part of 2 months with me going to her office from Monday to Friday, because the people that were hosting me, they couldn't host me, uh or they couldn't, because they had their geriatric, uh in the most respectful way, like they were geriatric, parents living with them. It wasn't considered like safe or suitable for me to stay at home alone with those grandparents during the working weeks from Monday to Friday. So I used to get up early, and I used to go to work with the mother of the house. She used to take me into her office, her travel agency. So I spent like 2 months just doing that, and every single day speaking with this woman and sharing the insights that I was reading in the books, and she would talk to me about it and teach me about it, and you know, um, yeah.
Sounds like she's kind of like your first spiritual mentor, something like that.
Yeah, I'm still in touch with her. I still have a good friendship with her today. Sometimes we offer consultations to people. Um, Sometimes she's like, "Hey, if you have anybody out there that wants to do a session with me, let me know." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And the way that we work is I just translate I, from Spanish to English, and she does the whole thing that she does.
Wow, very interesting.
Mm, mhm.
So you're reading these books, you have this spiritual awakening, and then you just decide to travel,
Hitchhike.
hitchhike.
Yep.
Is
Hmm.
that dangerous in that part of the world?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes, but I was just so rooted in my faith and this new awakening that I had. I was unfazed by anything. Um, I was kind of um held at knife point once. I had my passport stolen as well. Um, but like uh, all part of the adventure, I guess. Um, yeah, yeah, could be dangerous. Just you know, I had a significant advantage that I'm culture fluid and language fluid, so to speak. So I can, even though I'm white skinned and blue eyed, like I can fit in with the locals fairly okay. Yes, I might appear very different, but culturally and linguistically wasn't too big of an issue for me. So um, yeah, I think that helped me stay safe.
Right. All that time with your friends' families probably helped.
Yep, correct.
So when was the first time you did a psychedelic down there?
Down in South America or in my life in general?
Well, let's go down to South America.
Yeah,
Maybe we can go
yeah.
there later.
Because there were much less conscious escapades, much less aware and intentional escapades before I traveled to South America, before I awoke it.
Right.
First time in South America, um, beyond the marijuana that I may have smoked a few times in Buenos Aires, in Argentina. First time, really, first real time was in Bolivia, in Copacabana, on the edge of Lake Titicaca, the world's highest lake. It's like, I don't know how many thousands of meters above sea level, but I think like close to 4,000 meters above sea level. It's a big lake that runs between two countries. It literally separates Peru and Bolivia. So I was on the Bolivian side in Copacabana. The Peruvian side is called Puno. And in La Paz, the capital of Bolivia, before I got to Copacabana, and in Copacabana itself, I was searching the markets. I was searching the markets for San Pedro cactus. Um, and yeah, I couldn't find. I remember seeing one big fat cactus at a market, and they were offering it for sale, but I remember it costing too much. Like I didn't have. If I bought it, then I wouldn't have money to eat, basically. Um, so I just let that slip and decided like I just trust that it would come to me in the right time. And yeah, lo and behold, I came across a San Pedro cactus growing out the side of the mountain. So and I had a like Swiss Army knife, and so I asked permission to the local land and to the cactus itself. Um, and yeah, sawed my own cactus out the side of the mountain and then sliced it whilst sitting around a campfire with two Chilean girls and one Argentinian girl. We were divided by between two tents. And how did I meet them again? Oh my goodness, that's another story. But I met them whilst I was hitchhiking through Chile. And then they introduced me to their Argentinian friend, the two Chilean girls. They introduced me to their Argentinian friend there in Copacabana. And we ended up making arrangements to camp together on the edge of Lake Titicaca. And yeah, man, I'll never forget that feeling of just sitting under the night sky, starry night sky, fresh air of Lake Titicaca, and just slicing the ridges of the cactus and pulling off the juicy, almost a little bit aloe vera like, little bit, and just cooking it in a pot on the fire. That was my first time in South America, and man, was the medicine strong. Oh my goodness, so strong. I remember coming out of my tent feeling like the trees were just like reaching out to me, constantly just reaching out, wanting to like hug me and like caress me. Um, it was very good. It was a very good first experience. Perhaps not in the correct ceremonial, well, many might argue not in the correct ceremonial circumstance or environment. But it was of great service to me, and it was the perfect thing at that juncture of my life.
Heavy visuals.
Heavy visuals, yes.
Would you describe it as a spiritual experience? I'm just trying to think for guys that have never done psychedelics, like, would you describe it as a spiritual experience that first time?
Yeah, it was very spiritual. Yeah. Energy is amplified. Um, the feeling of interconnectedness between all things, and the feeling of the presence of a personality from the trees, like the elements and um, aspects of nature, and um, um, trees, literally trees and mountains becoming like coming alive and growing a personality and interacting with me, right? Um, that's a hugely spiritual experience. It kind of like removes the veil that separates us and the consciousness of nature.
Right.
Yeah.
So you met your wife, you continued to travel. So I think you said until you're 24, you guys continued to travel and sort of all over the world, it sounds like.
Yeah. Met my wife 5 days after entering Peru, moved in with her 2 weeks later, married her 3 months later in the city of Lima. To much criticism, I have to say. Uh, Friends, family members, they were just like, what the are you guys doing? Like, are you nuts?
It's
You
really
got this
fast.
20-year-old guy. Yeah, you're like on my 20th birthday. I wasn't even 20 yet by the time I committed to marriage with her. And I committed to get married on my 20th birthday. And she was 24. Yeah. Um, yeah. And we got
Were
married,
you,
and
were you like
yeah.
looking to get married before this, or was this spiritual experience kind of like the catalyst? Like, I met this girl, I'm gonna be with her. Like, leading up to that point where you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna get married soon, or was that just like something that you just felt in light of
To
all
be
this
honest,
new
man,
spirituality?
yeah, to be honest, the clairvoyant woman, she said this, she predicted this. And of
Mm,
course, I did not go out with a plan. I did not go, oh, she said it, so I'm going to go get married. No, it was nothing like that. But when it was happening, when I was getting married, I was like, oh, shit, like it's happening. What she said is happening now. Because she said, I can see you getting married very young, somewhere between 20 and 24 or 23, maybe 20, 21, 22. I can't tell the exact age, but I can see that you're young. Um, And the woman that you're going to get married to is of a very South American indigenous race, because I can see that you like the indigenous races more than other races. You're more attracted. Um, And it's funny that she said that, because even just yesterday I was thinking this, like how this surgence of like attraction to South America's indigenous population started to come about even when I was living in Buenos Aires without even realizing it, because I was ignorant of the history, the cultures, and whatever. But I just remember like some of the women that I was coming across in the local communities who are like of more of an indigenous race were so much more attractive to me. Um, and yeah, she saw that, and then when it happened, I was just like, whoa, this is happening. But yeah, I didn't have any intention necessarily. There was a few influencing factors, you know. One, me committing to her and committing to like building a life with her, but also like to provide some sense of some kind of a sense of peace to predominantly her dad, because her dad was like really worried, you know, that this random guy comes in, you know, a bit of a kook swooping in and, you know, grabbing his daughter away. And so he was like, no, you know, it would be safer if you got married, and that way, like, there's paperwork, and, you know, if anything happens, like, we can trace him and all that kind of stuff. And then there was also like just this deep inner knowing as well, that like if I married her, then uh, I wouldn't have as many issues getting her to be with me in my home country as if I weren't married to her, right? I had no idea. I had no idea about these things, about immigration, rules, laws, dynamics, whatever. No idea about it, but like I just knew inside myself that if I was married to her, then it would be easier for me to get her into my country with me than if I wasn't married to her. So all those like factors, you know, and a big one as well, a big one, you know, like, which really to this day it still touches my heart so deeply when I remember it, because we were like lying on a bed together, just like talking, you know, and and I, because I just had this huge spirit, this free spirit that was like on his way, on his journey. I was about to hitchhike from Peru through Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, come back down all the way through Brazil, back to Argentina. I had this like whole plan to go up and around South America hitchhiking. And as I'm like excitedly talking about that and envisioning in it, and who, you know, the people that I'm going to reconnect with in Ecuador and Colombia and blah blah blah, in that conversation on the bed, man, she was just like, you know, if that's going to happen, like, do it now, you know, just go now, because I think that the way everything is happening over here is going to hurt too much if we spend more time and this connection runs deeper and then you leave. It's going to hurt me too much. um or you can choose to stay, you know, and deepen this relationship. So essentially what she was saying was like, you're either going to choose your travels or choose me.
Mm,
You can't have both.
yeah.
um and that was like, that was a big moment, you know. I was like, whoa, shit, okay. And so I chose her. I chose to stay, and I chose to continue building the relationship with her. And so that played a big part in it as well, you know, like a strong gesture of like, okay, I'm choosing you. And then once that happened, she left her secure job and came traveling with me.
Right. Right. She just wanted to know that she was the priority.
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the first time. I mean, we're saying this now, and I'm kind of just having this realization now on this call with you, right? I haven't really thought of it from that angle before.
Right.
Um, so yeah.
So so you guys just go traveling. I mean, was she sort of spiritually enlightened, or did she have a spiritual life as
Not
well?
really
What
at that
inspired
point in
her to
time.
leave and travel with you?
The potential that she saw in the life I was living, uh,
Hmm.
and that sensation. that sensation that lived inside of her, which, at this point in my life, I look back and I'm like, man, that is honorable. It is an honorable thing. And it's admirable, the fact that she was like, man, this guy doesn't have a penny to his name. Like, I mean, she used to bring me toast and jam, toast and marmalade, because I'm doing street shows and making bracelets and necklaces and hair braids, and like making money was like, winning the lottery kind of, nobody, like so few people who could actually pay money for my street shows valued street art, right? And so I was just scraping by, and she would bring me toast and marmalade and toast and jam or toast and butter, whatever, wrapped up in like foil every day after work. She would bring me that, and just in case, I was hungry or whatever, I hadn't eaten. And she saw that. She saw like, this guy literally does not have a cent. Like, he's living day to day. He doesn't know how much he's going to make tomorrow. Doesn't even know if he's going to have enough to eat tomorrow. But man, there is something about his spirit. He is so free. Nothing is bothering him. Like, I want a piece of that. She kind of, these are her words, This is when she tells the story, she tells it like that. She could sense my free spirit, and she wanted that. She wanted my freedom. Um, and so she decided to quit her accountancy job and her 6 a.m. English classes. She used to get up at 5, go to English class at 6 a.m., and then by like 7:30 she was in the hotel. She worked in a local hotel as part of the accounting team. Just left it all, packed it all in, like, okay. And then she came traveling with me through Bolivia back into Argentina. Um, yeah, and that's when things started. Of course, the journey to have her residence secured in my country, in my home country, and whatever, it was a huge journey. Like, it took us, we tried to have her sort all that stuff out from Argentina, but they at the embassy they were like, "What the heck are you doing? Trying to gain entry to the UK from Argentina when you're Peruvian and you don't even have residence in this country. Like, go back to Peru, go to the British embassy in Peru." We had no idea, man. It's like,
Right.
I just turned 20. She was like 24, but like had no experience of life really outside of Peru
Right.
at that point. So, um, yeah, and then it was like 2 years, like £15,000, 4 lawyers, and it was a huge battle to secure her residence. And in the end, like, I learned all of the immigration law surrounding her case and submitted a fresh application after sending her back home from the UK back to Peru. I sent her back, and then I submitted a fresh application with a 12-page pre-appeal um, kind of pledge. Um, and yeah, eventually she was given her residence. And then I think it was only about 2 more years before she got her British passport. And then, of course, once she got her British passport, off we went again, traveling. We hitchhiked all around Europe, hitchhiked to and from Germany like 3 times,
Wow.
slept on couches across South Korea, um, slept on couches in China as well, slept on couches in Malaysia. Um, yeah, but of course, those travels were really focused on gaining wisdom from the earth-based traditions, the indigenous tradition.
And you are participating in psychedelic ceremonies throughout this whole time as you travel.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And like from 2011, 2 years after the first San Pedro ceremony on the edge of Lake Titicaca in Copacabana, we begin drinking yahe, ayahuasca with Colombian shamans, Ecuadorian shamans, natem with Ecuadorian shamans, Peruvians, Brazilians. And when we were in South Korea, yeah, I mean, there was no psychedelics involved, but we were in shamanic ceremonies. We were in the kot. is called Kot. Um, that's their shamanic ceremony performed by the Mudang. Mudang is the female shaman of Korea, predominantly female. So we were in those shamanic ceremonies without psychedelic substances, but still focusing on shamanism and earth-based wisdom traditions. Yeah.
So was ayahuasca, is that much stronger than the cactus that you had taken? Was it a different sort of medicine, or what was it like?
Yeah,
I mean,
not
I know
not
that you do it. You're kind of a veteran at this point of doing it, but
yeah,
was it
yeah,
was it much
yeah.
different?
Um, it is different. I wouldn't say one is stronger than the other, um, because they're both equally strong. They're both very strong medicines. It's just that one is mescaline based and one is DMT based. So they're a different experience. And one is more predominantly taken under the moonlight, and the other is more predominantly taken under the sunlight. Um, San Pedro is more associated with daylight journeying. Ayahuasca is more associated with nighttime journeying. Um, and they're equally strong, man. Like, and they can both make you vomit heavily, profusely, both of them. Last time I took San Pedro, wow, now that I think about it, last time that I took San Pedro, even though it was in one of our retreats in March 2023, I didn't take it. So the time before that I took San Pedro was, yeah, July 2021. Wow, that's some time ago now that I realize it. But that time, man, I don't think I've ever vomited so much with San Pedro. Like I just felt like my entire insides were being like emptied. My soul was being emptied. Yeah, different experience, but equally visual. Um, Mescaline, San Pedro is much more like clarity of mind and like really clear, like mind-based visuals and understanding and insights and clicks of like understanding, joining of the dots in your life. Ayahuasca is more like taking you and sweeping you and dragging you through your or across the journey of your life to revise. It's kind of like revisory, like you revise what's happened and you understand why things have happened. And um, yeah, so different experiences, but equally strong.
Okay, right. So you're having like sort of revelations about your life and trauma
Mm.
and probably much beyond that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Relationships, purpose, uh, direction, um, trauma for sure. Trauma for sure. And sometimes the way the traumas are brought up is like it's difficult to get your head around. It's difficult to like digest. You're kind of you sometimes it's difficult to see the value in what you're experiencing because you think that it just feels so damn shit. So like you're just like, oh my God, stop it. Like I need this to stop. Like but then of course once you get more experience under your belt, you begin to realize or if you have a good person to help you with integrating the experience, then they'll help you to realize that actually it's a very valuable experience because you are being made to feel in the most visceral way the pain and the suffering and the disdain and perhaps shame or guilt or whatever the feeling is that needs to be felt. The medicine is helping you to feel your way through it in the most intensely visceral way so that you can release it from your system. Because once you've felt it in its full expression in your cells and in your being, in every fiber of your body, then it's able to be released. You don't need to feel it to that intensity ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's why the whole saying, you got to feel it to heal it, right?
Right.
The medicines help you feel your feeling, feel what needs to be felt. And yes, it feels like shit in the moment. And you're just like, oh my God, like get it away, like almost like a horrible, monstrous bug that's eating you alive. You want to just get it away, stop it, stop it. But there is so much wisdom in just like breathing and sitting and being like, okay, what are you teaching me? Let me feel this. Yeah, okay, I'm going to find some level of grace in the middle of this pain, in the middle of this struggle. Okay. And I'm sure you'll agree that, you know, that level of grace can do wonders for you, not only inside a psychedelic healing ceremony, but in life in general.
Yeah, for sure. So the idea is that when you feel these things so deeply, like that most of us are probably pushing down in our day-to-day life, when you feel these deep traumas this viscerally, then um, you get relief. You get relief from
Yeah,
them.
well, yeah, you get relief from them because they're being brought from the closet.
Mm.
They're being brought from the shadow. This is why it's called shadow work as well, right? A lot of people say we're doing shadow work. It's like
Mm-hmm.
because you're reaching into the places that you've closed off in your everyday life in order to function and perform and to be the way society expects you to be, right? Um,
All the shit you don't want to deal with and all the shit you don't want to think about.
right. But
Bringing
in
that right
these
up into
medicine ceremonies, yeah, yeah, it brings it up. And so you're bringing it from the shadow into the light. And when you can bring it from the shadow into the light, then it's able to be fully integrated into into wholeness. You and all these parts are able to be brought together and held in awareness in a way that allows every single part of yourself to be accepted, to be integrated, to be on the table in awareness, which is living in a wholesome way, which is living as a whole, which is living holistically.
Hmm. So you guys embark on this journey of travel, and I think from talking before and seeing some of your other stuff, you became a father, right? Soon after some of these travels.
South Korea. Yeah, I was 24. Um, and yeah, my daughter, literally we fell pregnant in the mountains of Korea. Um, so both my children were conceived in mountains far away from Scotland, but they were birthed in Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland,
Wow.
which is pretty cool. Um, so yeah, I can't remember the name of the mountains in Korea. What Tebeksan? Tebeksan? I think it was in Tebeksan. Yeah, that's like a Tebeksan is Seraksan is much further north, roughly on the same line as Seoul, the capital, and then Tebeksan is like much further down, probably about uh, maybe only a couple of hours or maybe a few hours northwest of Busan in South Korea, which is almost like the second capital of Korea, right? Busan. Um, yeah, we were there and we were hanging out with the elders, literally playing God knows what it was, checkers or something like that, with these old Korean people in the mountains. Drinking alcohol as well. They had this drink among them. They must have been about like in their 70s or 80s, these really old Korean locals in the mountains drinking and serving us this alcoholic drink. I wish I could remember the name of it. It was not mekchu. Mekchu is beer, but this was like a spirit, fermented something, traditional drink. Yeah. And man, um, at that time. That's when we got pregnant in Tibigson. 24 years old, and my wife kind of said to me, like, like, I could be pregnant, right? You know that. And I was like, well, we've been married for 4 years now. We've lived quite a lot. Like, maybe it's time to become parents. Boy, did I underestimate
Mhm.
what parenthood would bring to our life. For
No
sure,
big
I
deal, right?
underestimated that one.
No
Yeah,
big deal.
yeah, totally. Yeah, totally,
Just pop a
totally.
few out of the oven. It's all good.
Exactly like that. Yeah, no problem. Uh, and man, yeah, I really underestimated that one. But that brought that was the start of the birth of my daughter. Was the start of my deviation from my path, from because I got so caught up in all the traumas of providership, providing, being the provider, um, and I got lost. I got lost in the big business entrepreneurial drive. Um, I got lost in that. I just all the loud noises. You go out there on social media, everybody is screaming at everybody's screaming at you, and I got caught up in all of that. Got caught up in like network marketing companies,
Yeah.
property investment ventures, and like just got lost. Um,
Yeah.
and the first 6 years of my fatherhood, like I won't ever get them back. I won't ever get them back with my daughter, but if I could, I would do things very, very differently, man. Yeah.
I think that's an extremely common story. And, this podcast is about struggles of men and like getting lost in the provider role and becoming kind of obsessed with money. And of course, you need to make money, but um,
Mm,
being lost in that provider role and almost losing everything else. Um, I'm not a
mm,
father, but I've kind of, I when you're saying this, I can relate to it because I kind of did the same thing. I got lost in all the like similar stuff that you're
mm,
talking about. But
mm.
um, why do you think? Why do you think, first of all, that you got lost in it? Um, why do you think men like what's sort of the right way to approach it, and the wrong way to approach it? Because it sounds like you're on the right path now.
First and foremost, man, I don't believe any well-intentioned man is bad. I don't
Mm.
really believe in the concept of bad men,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, there are bad people out there, right? Who I could quite easily define as bad. Um, but I don't think that it's part of the human condition being bad. Like, I think this badness is like culturally ingrained, you know. Um,
Right.
you know, like the way that people can just like in Israel, Palestine, and the Middle East. And I'm not going to give any opinion on what is happening out there, but what I will say is the way that that place out there, it sets a perfect example of how cults and cultural conditioning can make you have so much disregard for another group of people or even just one person, that you have no care whatsoever for them, that you do not feel any empathy whatsoever for them, and you're quite happy just removing them from the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is bad. Like those are bad people. Do I think that they could be transformed by tapping into parts of themselves, their heart, their emotions, and allowing those parts of themselves to be alchemized and transformed and recultured? Yes, I absolutely do. And so I do not believe in the permanence of badness. I don't believe in the permanence of darkness, right?
Mm.
And most especially, and something that I feel so strongly about because I have been labeled a bad man in the
Yep.
past, by certain people and certain characters that have come through, mostly, mostly uh, like wounded women, um, and it's just it's the science of woundedness. One wound exacerbates and triggers another wound, and then back and forward. Um, so I'll bring it back and say that any well-intentioned man is never really bad, and and at the same time, I believe in this old Hindu notion that the shadow is a blessing because traversing and going through and transcending the shadow is what helps us to realize what it is to be good. So in other words, in simple terms, we have to be bad to feel the pain of being bad so that we know what it means and how valuable it is to be good.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really feel those words. I really feel that wisdom in my being, like, because I have made some shitty decisions in my life. And even though I might have had the best intentions, I acted from a shadowy, dark place inside myself without really realizing it until it was too late. And I looked back and was like, fuck, I just made
Yeah.
that mistake. I hurt that person. Jeez, like, I've just hurt that person. Now I'm hurting. I'm hurting because I'm empathically feeling the pain of that person. Shit, that doesn't feel nice. And so through being bad, we learn what it means and how valuable it is to be good. Right.
Right.
And so a bit of a long-winded way to answer your question, man, but the wrong way is the right way, you know? Um, the wrong way is the right way. The mistakes lead to the correction. Um,
It's like going off the path leads you back onto the path because you realize you're way off.
right, right. But what you got to work on is continuously cultivating and refining your awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what will keep you. It's like a slalom racer. Awareness is the compass,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because yeah, we can go way off the path and almost crash into the public that's watching, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Woo! But until we realize, oh shit, woof, because it's awareness that brings us back onto the slalom of life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so to continuously, like, if there is one way of defining mastery would be the most heightened and refined awareness. That's what, one description for mastery would be the epitome of ultimate awareness.
And do you think as men we get lost when we stray from that awareness? So like, you know, stray from awareness of our heart, sort of our soul, of our calling, of our something deeper. We just kind of like because we all have this provider and we need to make money and I know like the hustle culture and everything, like so many men get into that and then they end up feeling lost and kind of what you described, like at the end of it, it takes more than it gives, or even if they do make all this money, it's like kind of empty in the end. Do you think that lack of awareness is what's at least a part of what's missing for a lot of men?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this brings us to the conversation of culture and identity, because we have been torn through acts of colonialism, through industrialization, through the development and evolution, birthing, seeding, development, and perpetuation of this modern world that we live in. We have been torn like a baby getting torn away from its mother, like, literally. It's literally what's happened. We've been torn away like babies being torn from their mother. And the umbilical cord of connection is our spiritual traditions, our ancestral traditions, right? Our rites of passage, the recognition of what it means to move from being a boy to being a man, right? The traditions of honoring all that surround us, all of our relations, nature, what the birds give us in the morning, what the rivers give us to nourish ourselves, what the forests provide us to nourish ourselves and our family, what the animal kingdom gives us. We don't have framework for honoring and respecting that anymore, and so there's no elders, there's nobody to pass on teaching. We're being taught by screens that are feeding us information at 1,000,000 miles an hour, information after information after information. And we're being taught, our initiations in today's world is, like waking up on a sidewalk after a crazy night, drinking alcohol out with friends, that's our, style of initiation today.
Crazier the better. Crazier night
Right.
you had, the better.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you learn anything from the indigenous cultures about the initiation from boy to man?
Yeah. Yeah. Enough. And what I've learned from studying indigenous cultures in general, universal indigenous wisdom, is that there is a certain rite of passage, For example, in some tribes, from the age of 3 or 4, in the Amazon jungle, in some tribes, from the age of 3 or 4, the children are given ayahuasca or given medicine, and it's an absolutely hellish experience. Of course, it's a hellish experience, and it puts them through all of this like refinement and cultivation through their whole life, and then by the time they get to 15, sometimes 14, actually, they are allowed to serve a cup of medicine, right? And so this act of being in charge of the ceremony and serving a cup of medicine is a gesture of moving into adult existence, elder existence, right? But also there are, for example, in the Lakota, they have a sun dance, and I think that 15, if I'm not mistaken, 15 is when you're allowed to do your first sun dance, which marks your passage from boyhood into manhood. And again, I don't want this to be taken as gospel. I'm not a practitioner of Lakota traditions. It is my understanding that the Lakota, this is the way they practice, Lakota and Dakota. And if it is accurate that the youngest they're allowed to do a Sundance is 15. Um, then it may be shown that this marks a moving a moving of the needle, a transitioning of the season of life, to be witnessed by the family. What do they need? What do they need to be able to do a Sundance? They need 4 consecutive years of doing vision quest, which is where they disappear into the wilderness alone, whilst having elders in the far peripheries of the area of land that they're occupying. They go 4 nights and 4 days with no food and no water, seeking vision, seeking wisdom, praying for wisdom, praying for a vision. And after their 4th, they can do the Sundance, right? Where they get hooked into a mother tree, and they must rip the hooks from their skin. Or also another initiation that I heard is dragging with these hooks in their skin, dragging bison skulls across the desert, right? For several days, right? And removing these hooks from their own skin and having scars for all of their life, right? Marking this commitment, devotion, but also importantly, transition, right? And to be witnessed by all of their family by that, to go through a rite of passage and a celebration, a ceremonial celebration, where it is collectively being recognized that this person, this young boy now is no longer a young boy, he's now moving into adulthood. To have that imprinted and celebrated, imprinted in our psychology, in our emotional body and our psychology, and to have it witnessed in accountability, in the energy of accountability by our whole family, our whole community. There's something huge in that, because then if you return to boyhood, if you act out in immaturity, or you trip up, or you make mistakes, or you fail people, or you betray people, you're not really just betraying yourself. You're not really just betraying that person. You're not only just betraying yourself, you're also betraying those people who bore witness to you becoming a man, who honored you in your process of becoming a man, and the metaphorical gestures of promise that you made in this process to walk the honorable path of maturity, right? There's something huge in that. Huge.
I imagine it has a profound effect on their psychology. Like we just have none of that. We have nothing. And I couldn't imagine how much deeper of a tradition that is than like, getting drunk and waking up on a sidewalk.
Yeah. No alcohol involved, you know? Yeah. Just the honorable connection and witnessing of the people that are nearest and dearest to you in your family and in your community.
Just as we wrap up here, I have kind of a 2-part question. In terms of men today, how would you say the best way, how I'll just start with this. How would a man in today's modern world, how do you think the best way about going about finding their authentic self would be?
be far from your family of origin and your place of origin. If you can, travel. If you can. If you can travel, do it. Immerse yourself in places and cultures, languages and people that are far from what you were born into. That's one way. That's one way. And for a much more simple way that it's accessible to everybody at all times in any circumstance, or most circumstances at least, is to ask yourself the question, what gives me joy? What excites me? Where does my excitement lead me? Where does joy lead me? What does excitement say to me? What does joy say to me? If joy was personified and had a voice, and if excitement was personified and had a voice, what would they be saying to me? If they were to give me one instruction for me to take an action right now, what would that be? That's a bit more accessible than going to the other side of the world, right?
Right.
If you can do both of them and find what excites you in the middle of going to the other side of the world and immersing in other cultures, then you're maybe onto something even more significant.
So following what calls to you in a sense, like what
Yep.
interests you,
Yep.
what makes you excited about life?
Yep. Yep. When does excitement speak to you? When does passion arise inside of you? Follow that. See how you can make that passion grow. What would you need to do to keep the fire of that passion burning and to make it even bigger than what it is now? What activities would you need to partake in? What kind of people would you need to speak to? What level of conversation would you need to be having in order to feed that passion, to feed that joy, to feed that excitement, to keep those burning? How can you put more wood on that fire, put more fuel on that fire to make it burn brighter?
Would you say that's one of the biggest things men are missing in today's world? I mean, in the Western world and whatnot.
To know ourselves truly, who we are, yeah, for sure. For sure. Many layers of conditioning and trauma to unpack in order to reach the truest essence of ourselves. But by following those lines of excitement, joy, and passion, we can find ourselves, our true self.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on, Mark, and sharing all this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you very, very much. And yeah, if anybody wants to, have further conversations with me, I think you'll leave my details
Yeah,
somewhere
I'll leave all your
in there.
details. So just let people know where they can find you, and I'll leave it all below in the description.
Yeah, cool. You can find me on Instagram, Marc-John Brown, MarcJohnBrown. Our family company website is www.nativewisdomhub.com. Our company is Native Wisdom Hub. So nativewisdomhub.com. I'm on Facebook as facebook.com/MarcJohn.Brown. So MarcJohn.Brown. And yeah, please feel free to reach out to me. DM me on Instagram, DM me on Facebook, reach out via the website if you want. Also, I can leave my email address as well, marc-john@nativewisdomhub.com. So if anybody wants to drop me an email, feel free.
Okay. I'll put that all in the description. Thank you again, Mark, so much for coming on. It was great talking to you today. And I think what you're doing is really cool and really amazing, actually.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, thank you for knowing when to slow me down and knowing when to interject and asking those beautiful questions that just helped the conversation to flourish in ways that I guess I didn't really expect. I mean, I learned whole new things, learned things for the first time about my own life. So, like, kudos and testament to you too. And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, man. Talk soon.
All right.